Dirt roads to rock crawling, two-buck chuck to screaming eagle, moonshine to 50-year-old single malt. We talk about it all here on Wheelin' Wine and Whiskey with your hosts, Jason and Chris.
Welcome to the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey podcast in the Ruby Track Studio / Wheeling Wine and Whiskey hospitality trailer here on the lakebed. King of the Hammers 2026, Chris.
Oh, yeah, baby. I'm so stoked. I can't believe I made it here. Got a little bit of adversity driving down on I-5. But that's a story for another day. But in the meantime, we are in the thick of it. The weather is epic. And, it's like shirt sleeve and shorts weather, but we're all wearing long pants.
And dust.
And
lots of dust in the forecast.
There's going to be some hammer-lung in the forecast.
Oh, my God.
Sure.
We're just hoping for a little bit of W to blow it out a little bit out of the valley here. But, so we are here on Lakebed. We're going to dive right in because we got a special guest here that I've been trying to get on the podcast for the last 2 years. And we have Brett King from King Shocks. How you doing, Brett?
Yeah, so thank you guys for having me. It's pretty awesome to be here today. So right. I know you've been trying to get me here for a few times, and I've kind of been, a little standoffish, you know what I mean, as I always am. It's nothing personal.
Right, no, I didn't.
Do you know what I mean? Especially the last few years as my daughter has been starting to race Class 11, and earlier on in the weekend she's racing, so we've been concentrating on her racing, and now that her race was over yesterday, we're able to do a little bit more stuff.
I love it. Yes,
we're able to become a spectator finally.
There you go.
That's awesome. Absolutely.
And sitting next to you is Bob, aka Bomber Bob. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good.
You
got roped into this somehow.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. That's how we do this.
Well, I feel like Brett. Eventually, maybe.
Yeah, see? It's good.
Just depends on who I get in trouble.
You guys get your first podcast together. So
cool.
It's special.
I like
it. How long have you known each other?
I met Brett probably Bomber 1.
Yeah?
Bomber 1.
In the old shop. Yeah,
but we have, since day one, I mean, I've been to every single King of the Hammers race. So okay. Bomber 1, we were here, helping
Bomber
support
1.
Randy, and I remember doing all those shocks for Randy, the very first King of the Hammers event. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Figuring out the shock package it needed, because it was like rattle your teeth the first one, and then they figured it out, and it's just gotten better every year.
Right on.
The evolution of suspensions and shocks in rock crawling or Ultra 4 really changed, because before Ultra 4 it was basically the cars are all built for rock crawlers and
right.
Air shocks and some air bypass, and all of a sudden once these cars, which King of the Hammers started, and it's kind of a hybrid between rock crawling and desert racing, it changed everybody, and it changed within a very short period of time. Once the guys realized that they're trying to make their cars go faster, they changed from air shocks and basic, really super lightweight stuff, and speed mattered. They started to all switch to coilovers and bump stops and stuff that you typically didn't traditionally see in traditional rock crawling at the time.
Okay.
Right. Well, to think about the evolution of the cars, I mean, in the very, very early days, it was basically all the stock stuff, whether it was, leaf springs, right, and or what, torsion bars. I don't know if that was ever a thing in Ultra 4 racing, but I mean, yeah, the way it's evolving so rapidly, and I'm sure you're staying on the cutting edge.
Yeah, it's always evolves all the time, and it's very small steps, right? Like you'll see it a little bit at a time, and that's just like somebody's building a production car or a Ford or a Chevy. It's lots of small little things here and there that add up through time. Mm-hmm. Usually no huge leaps and bounds.
So let's back up to how King Shocks started. How did you start this company, and what's your background prior to that?
Well, prior to it, I started racing score. I started, I guess, quote unquote, I was racing before it, but my first score race was the Parker 400 in 1986.
Okay.
Right. And I had purchased a three-wheeler, a Honda 250R, from a friend of ours, of mine, is from Wilson Motorsports. They run a desert race team, and they were friends of ours at the time. And I had purchased Randy Wilson's, his older brother's three-wheeler from him. And about a month after I got it, his younger brother, Ronnie Wilson, called me and asked me, I know it's your bike, but if you guys want to race the Parker 400, let's go race the Parker 400 together. And I'm like, okay, well, I need a partner, because I wouldn't do it because the entry fees are kind of expensive.
Okay.
And it gave us an opportunity where I could work on the bike and prep the bike, and he could help with the entry fees and some of the costs that I couldn't. So it created a little bit of a partnership for both of us to be able to do something that we couldn't have done individually. And I today always tell that to people.
That's cool.
If you're going to try to do something, try to do it with a partner. Don't always try to do something by yourself. Right?
Well, yeah, racing's expensive, and being competitive at racing is really expensive.
Yes.
So this was a three-wheeler?
It was a three-wheeler, yes.
Holy crap. What was that
Yes.
like racing?
I raced score for about 6 years on 3 years on a three-wheeler and 3 years on a Banshee. Right, but
Banshee,
back then, those things were like when the three-wheelers really like came out, and back in the 80s, they were like,
That's right.
They were more than side-by-sides were at the time, right? And then they just converted into quads. You know what I mean? And it was a way for us to be able to go racing, and
Sure.
you know what I mean? And for us, I've always liked the camping part of it more than the racing. You know what I mean?
The camping and
The
camaraderie.
working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all my good days are in the desert.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're either with my family or in the desert.
That's
And if
cool.
I can get my family to the desert, I'm totally happy.
I totally relate to that. I love the camping aspect of what we do, and we're just rec wheelers, but and I love getting out on the trails, don't get me wrong, but I really love coming back to camp after wheeling. Everybody made it back in one piece, and get dinner going and hang out with everybody.
And I think that's part of one of the draws to King of the Hammers is everybody can bring their own vehicle. It's not off limits to anybody. It's open riding.
Yeah.
You can have a wood burning campfire, right?
Right.
You can have a campfire. It's more traditional camping.
Right.
And you can also go racing at the same time.
That's
and
true.
when you combine those two, like a lot of races you can't go. It's all closed course. It's on private land. There's all sorts
Exactly.
of rules and regulations, and you're really just there. You're only there really to go racing, and sometimes when it's like that, it takes some of the fun away for somebody who's not racing.
Right.
We've said that over and over and over again on the show about the family aspect of it and the approachability of, fans being able to go into the pits and with the access. Because I mean, I've mentioned it before. Formula One, NASCAR, Indy. None of those series allow anybody into the pits. Or if you do get into the pits, it's with a very special, expensive pass.
Cost you a lot of money.
Exactly.
Or somebody.
Or somebody. Like if you know Bob or Bob, you get in everywhere. Okay, so a three-wheeler, which for 3 years, that's insane. And what do you say, Riley? Go.
I'm sure you won the Baja 1000 on that, didn't you?
Yeah, we won the Baja
See?
1000 in there
No.
one of the years, and we won the championship one of the years on the three-wheeler.
So what kind of suspension's on this?
Nothing.
thing? Is it just
And that's kind of how we got started,
That's what I'm getting at.
building shocks. No, back then they did have suspension.
Yeah.
And for us, what would you do? Because my dad was a suspension guy, so what do we do to our three-wheeler?
Okay.
And it's a
Bottom.
desert race, so what are you? Well, you stretch a frame 4 inches, right? And my dad was a fabricator, engineer, So we stretched the frame 4 inches to give it a longer. We turned it basically into a desert bike instead of just a.
Okay.
We stretched the frame 4 inches, and then we put CR 500 forks on the front, so we got more
Okay, there
wheel
you go.
travel.
So you
and
had suspension
trying to
on the
make
front.
it, and those were the early days. And then he'd make a swing arm for it, and we'd do light porting and stuff to the bike. You know what I mean?
That would, I mean, it just, yeah, that's mad respect, man, because those three-wheelers, I've ridden them, and yeah, even with decent air in the tires, they're a rough ride.
Was that the CR250?
Is it
Yes, correct.
Those
it
were
was
fun.
the 250.
250?
Yeah, I had a 82 and an 81 air-cooled 250s,
Yeah.
and I did race those. There used to be in Score or in Barstow. It was a small organization. It was more grassroots like we see, and it was called ARA, and they raced three-wheelers at the time, and it was really only three-wheeler racing, and they did it like they had a 20-mile loop. You'd show up in Barstow. It was like $40 to enter, and all the beginners did one lap in the morning, and then in the afternoon it was the amateurs and the experts, and they had the exact same 20-mile course, but they did 2 loops.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I really liked about it, and because I even see today we need more of this feeder stuff for people who just want to get their feet wet and not go to the big stage all the time. It needs and maybe it's just a beginner class of even an Ultra 4 class. It's just the beginner class.
Right.
Right? It's not.
Low barrier to entry is what you're talking about.
Yes, it's a beginner class.
Yeah.
Or even if they have a nicer car, it's just a little bit of a different level and more of a separation so that people could get introduced into motorcycle
Sure.
racing without throwing them into the wolves of the big classes.
Sure.
Especially for these younger kids, when they're, especially for the younger kids that are
Sure.
14, 15, 16. That's when they all really need to be introduced into the sport.
Yeah.
A younger age with their parents and at a level that they don't have to compete with the high-end people. And if they want to later, they can go into those higher-end classes,
Sure.
right?
Like your daughter behind you, starting out in class 11 last night.
Yes, just like my daughter, yes.
That's cool.
She's been liking it, so I've been supporting it more and more, and she is just really, really loving it.
That's
you know
cool.
what I mean? Like, the family seems to enjoy it a lot, and we've really learned a lot, and it's given me a little bit of a different perspective that I haven't had in a while.
Really cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as racing and working on the cars and how much work it is, and the initial for us on our class 11, the initial build on it was a lot to get it up to speed and build a right car. And now it's just kind of maintaining it and doing fine tunes here and there. But we've kind of worked it out, and we've learned a long ways, because I've never really been hardcore into. I've done shocks for a lot of the cars for many years, but I haven't been the one pulling spring plates and torsion bars and working on all of that stuff and become an expert. I'm becoming more of an amateur at a Volkswagen right now.
Right.
As far as my knowledge on building them and making them into a race car.
But that's cool. That's gotta, yeah, I can hear where you're like, this is something different, new, and a different aspect of racing that you get to be involved with now
Yeah.
at a different level where you're not behind the wheel.
So for our listeners that may not know what Class 11 is, can you explain the basics of the category or the class, what the car is, what the horsepower or engine, what the rules are, if you will?
Well, the class 11 is basically a stock bug.
Okay.
Right.
Volkswagen
And
bug.
It's a Volkswagen stock bug, and these are very limited classes, and but I say that, but it's like all racing, just as you said, racing is expensive. Even the limited classes are still kind of expensive. You know what I mean? The parts, we're just so hard on parts, and what we do in our sport is so hard on parts that most of the production parts just don't work. They're not good enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just not good enough.
So you end up fabricating or
Everything
machining
is all small, made by small shops everywhere. There's no economies of scale anywhere.
Okay,
Right.
so air-cooled 4-cylinder, horizontally opposed engine.
They're air-cooled 4-cylinder motors based from the 60s. You know, they have restrictor plates in them so that you can build, and they're limited to 8-to-1, and they have all sorts of other 8-to-1 compression ratio, but they also have lots of other limitations on what you can and can't do to the car. The biggest problem is some of those limitations are some of the rules to me are getting a little bit outdated, and they're rules from 30-40 years ago, and some of them it's hard to get some of these parts. Like, if you need a ring and pinion, you're just getting one from 50 years ago. You can't buy a new one.
And you can't do an aftermarket one or anything like that.
There is no new product, so you're just going through ring and pinions that were typically older ones, and supposedly now there's a few more new ones that are coming out because the class has been growing so much that somebody can go out and have a small quantity of ring and pinions made. You know what I mean? So.
Interesting. Okay, so 3-wheeler, one Baja 1000. Then you got this quad, the Banshee, which was a 2-cylinder Yamaha, right? Yamaha Banshee. I remember those now. 2-cylinder. Those were the badass hot rod
when
back in the
those
day.
came out in 1987, it was the first year of the Banshee, and I got mine in October. I got an 88 model in October of 88.
Okay.
Is that the one?
Or October of 87.
October of 87.
As an 88 model.
Okay. 88 model, but you got it in late 87.
Is that the one in the showroom?
That is the one. I still have my original Banshee.
That's cool.
That's sitting in the front showroom, right? And I kind of, after a few years of racing in the Banshee, you know, I had broken my back getting ready for San Felipe. I crashed and I hit my head real hard. And I had a compression fracture of my vertebrae between my shoulder blades.
Oof.
And it came from the top down because I hit a rock. I was out in Hodge Road in Barstow testing, getting ready to go to the start of the season for San Felipe. And you know, when I crashed, I immediately knew I could feel tingling.
Oof.
You know, in my feet. You know what I mean? Because of those. So I'm like, I literally just left my helmet on. I knew it was a fairly bad crash, and I've had the wind knocked out of me, but this, you could tell this was a little different.
Beyond.
And I literally just laid there in the desert with my gear on, just laid there until someone finally found me. Come looking for me, because we were testing. It was like, you know, a Sunday morning that we were out there testing, and I just laid there. I didn't want to take no chances, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they put me on a backboard or one of those tables.
Uh-huh.
You know, we all have those plastic tables, and they slide you onto one of those and just slid me into the back of the dually and took me to the Barstow Community College to get some x-rays. And, you know, it had some cracks and stuff, but I didn't require surgery.
Oh,
I wore a back brace for 3 months, and then my back hurt a lot for probably 2 years, and then eventually the main pain went away after about 2 years.
How old were you when that happened?
I was about 21, right? I was right at 21, right? And I started racing score right when I was only 15.
Oh, wow.
You know, and you're not supposed to race until you're 16 for score. So my dad just cheated a little bit on the entry form. Like
Fudge the paperwork.
I think a lot of people do today.
Oh, of course.
To get their 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds into racing, they'll say they're 16.
Sure.
And I was one of the early examples. You know what I mean? But it really also formed me to learn to work on cars and turn a wrench and weld and make aluminum panels, and, you know, all because of my father. You know what I mean? Like, he made all our aluminum gas tanks.
Wow.
You know, we would make an aluminum hand-pounded gas tank, and we'd make swing arms for our bikes, and you know.
So what did your father do for a living before with that? I mean, with that background, was he racing too, or was he?
My dad never really raced off-road, right? My dad was originally, my father and my grandfather all come from a welding background.
Okay.
The King family, from my grandfather, was originally from Iowa, and they had a big welding business in Iowa. And in, you know, the probably about 1968, my father was working for his father in his welding business, and the thing burned down in the middle of the night.
Oh, jeez.
Right, and you know, Grandpa packed up him and his 5 sons, and they all moved to Orange County, California. Right, and
The home of Disneyland.
the home of Disneyland. You know what I mean? We're a few miles from Disneyland. You know what I mean? And
Oh, yeah.
I've been there all my life. I was born there in '69, and I haven't. I live in a house 6-7 houses from my original house.
Really?
You know what I mean? And it's just been a convenient. You know what I mean? It's we got settled there, and I guess I've kind of grown a little roots. And my wife always wants to move someplace else, but I think it's my family home. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I can go other places, but this is going to be my home.
That's cool. So, okay, 3-wheeler. I got to keep saying the 3-wheeler because that still amazes me. That's just crazy. Then to the Banshee, and you raced the Banshee for how many years?
About 3.
3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when did the shock thing come in to, like, how did this evolve into King Shocks?
In basically, you know, I had been to all the races. I knew all the courses. And my father in 1985 started building the first really production-based, full CNC machined, large 3-inch shock absorbers.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, after they just built them in-house for a few people. They never were really, they were a large oil well company with a large CNC oil field manufacturing company. But the owner of the company, Don Custer, and my dad's were personal friends, and my dad was basically his lead fabricator.
Okay.
Designed and built trucks and suspensions and stuff for the owner of the company. His name was Don Custer, right? And they had a few people calling on these shock absorbers, and they started to sell a few of them. And then I was going through college at the time, and I just worked down the street. We were from, Custer Company was in Signal Hill, and I was going to Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
Right at the time for a marketing and a business degree. And after I worked for also at Long Beach Yamaha before Custer Company. So I left Long Beach Yamaha. I worked at a motorcycle dealership for 6 years for a gentleman named Tom Ridings. And I had known all the courses and all the people and done all the contingencies for SCORE, and Mr. Custer asked me if I would like to go to some of the events and set up a tent and an awning and represent the product.
Okay.
Right, so that was essentially my in to shock absorbers.
Wow.
Right, hey, can you lay these out on a bench and go to the Baja 500 and lay them out on the bench and talk to people? And you know, my dad he's like, yeah, because my dad was the one designing and building them all, and if his son can go do that, like he'll go there with him, you know what I mean? So it just kind of became a family affair with me and my father, you know what I mean?
Very cool.
And that was essentially our start into building shock absorbers.
And what year was that time frame?
That was like 93.
Okay, early 90s.
Early
Okay.
90s,
Wow.
92, 93. I started at Custer in 1992.
Okay.
Right. So,
Okay. So then moving on from that, what do you got, Bob?
I got one question. Did you ever race score at Riverside?
I raced Riverside, but not score Riverside.
Okay.
And I have some amazing memories from going to Riverside.
Likewise, Parnelli Jones, Walker Evans, I got to watch them. I knew people on the maintenance crew for the track, so I could go anywhere with them and hang out. It was so
I
much
have some amazing memories from going to Riverside. Thunder Alley,
fun. Oh, yeah.
you know, the way it was all done, and they
Go on the off-camber corners along the pavement S's and all that stuff.
it's an off-camber.
People popping
It's an
out.
off-camber turn to the left, and then it turns to the right, all off-camber.
All off-camber.
Really?
Yeah, it was really cool the way they did it, and
Doesn't sound very
the,
cool.
the crowds were spectacular.
Okay.
Then you
Sounds
see
like
the
it's a
water
setup
truck
for a
cruising
wreck.
along, and he's squirting water way up on the bank, and out
they-
pops 2 or 3 guys out of the hole where they fill it.
Really?
It was always really hot.
Okay.
They did it all during Riverside was usually during the summer.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to go to like a desert race. And you know, they would have those huge water balloon. I remember it to this day. They had spectators on both sides of the track, and it's 100 yards across.
Wow.
And those were all the race cars, and the crowds on one side would shoot water balloons at the other side, and the other side is launching water balloons to the other side with these huge contraptions that they had made to, and when those water balloons were coming in, everybody would scatter, and just it was so much fun.
That's cool.
Do you know what I mean?
You just see security running up and stopping one of the water trucks, yanking guys out of the big hole that they fill it in, and throwing them over on the over the fence. And there was no "be nice." You're over the fence.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
loads of fun.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it was a good time. So
So okay. So you're representing these shocks for your father that was helping build them and stuff, and then where did it go from there?
well, you know, basically we found ourselves unemployed, right? And when we were on unemployment, we didn't know how to do anything, and it happened to me, my dad, and my brother all at the exact same time.
Really?
Right? Like, fortunately, we didn't have wives or kids or any payments, and you know, we all lived at the same house.
Okay.
So I can either spend a month to go try to find a job, or I can go to work right now designing stuff in our home office or our home garage, and then in a month or two, when I can find a building, we'll move into a building. But let's start right now.
Wow.
Let's not wait. There was no plan. Do you know what I mean? Like, everybody, oh, I know, dude, there's no plan. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's not that formal.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
Gotcha. Yeah. It just
Absolutely.
it
I don't
out of
have no
necessity almost there. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
it
we got to
was-
figure out something to do.
We got to figure out something to do. And you know what? The only thing we know how to do is build shocks.
Okay.
Right. And I think a lot of people get that. If you're into concrete, or after you've done something for 10 or 15 years, it's what you do.
Yeah. That's what
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what happened to us.
Okay.
Like,
That's a cool story.
we know we've been in a machine shop our whole life, and that's really, even today, I'm 90% a machine shop and 5%, 10% a welding shop.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really a true machine shop, and that's where our roots are, is a machine shop making parts.
Okay.
So obviously the company has grown dramatically from the early days. What's your shop space look like, or square footage, and what's a day in the life look like in the shop?
The square footage, I have a couple buildings. I have a building, I've been in the building I'm in now for 10 years. And we had another smaller building that we moved out of about 10 years ago. And when we left that building, we just left the CNC machines there.
Okay.
And that way we make the parts in this building, and they're only about a mile apart.
Oh.
So it also gives them a little bit of separation, which is kind of nice for us too. Right. So we machine the parts, and then the main facility does everything other than that. All the engineering, sales, marketing, inventory, spring inventory, R&D facility, shipping and receiving, everything is at the main building, basically. All the customer service and stuff that attains more to the customer is at one particular main building. Right. The main building is about 60,000 square feet.
Wow.
And the machine shop is around 30. Right. So I've seemed to have this pattern where I always need a little bit more space. It seems like about every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And for us, it's just been hard to kind of do anything. You know what I mean? Just because of as you get larger buildings and stuff, it's a little harder to grow. I couldn't get a little small building next to me anymore, and that's how we did it in the beginning. And you know, hey, you need a little bit more space. You can get a little bit more space, or to put another machine and stuff, and it gets harder. And we've really wanted to stay local and not move away.
Okay.
So only because it's where we grew up, I guess.
Sure.
You know,
it's home.
It's kind of home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
So then the company started the mid 90s, you would say?
96.
96, okay.
96 was the basically the first year of us.
And
You know
then
what I mean?
how many shocks were you producing a year those first couple years, would you say, or what was your?
I wouldn't know. I
Yeah.
mean, we focused on what we've always done was the bigger shocks, and it was what we were known for, and it's what we love to do.
Desert stuff.
We started building the same stuff we did in the past, and it was all the larger shocks. And we'd build a 3-inch first, and then let's build a 2-inch, and then a 2.5, and then a 4, and then a 4.5, and now we have we need a 3.5. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As whatever was a little bit more necessary for a race truck at the time. So we went from a 3-inch bypass and we skipped straight to a 4.0.
Wow.
We didn't go to that 3.5.
Gotcha.
We
Skipped
skipped
it.
the line and then go back, because the 3.5s were a little bit more for maybe a limited buggy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Something that wasn't as apparent at the time or as much useful at the time. Shock's a little bit more designed specifically for race trucks. So
And then the bombers came in, and you had to figure it out all over again. Because it was triple bypasses? Now it's quadruples or something?
the first ones for Randy were 2-tube. And
I remember.
And I switched those over to 3 tubes.
Yep.
You know what I
And it
mean?
just kept going.
I switched them over to 3 tubes, and Randy has always seemed to want some of the newer, better, a little bit more cutting edge stuff at the time. You know what I mean? And we've been obliged to help Randy in any way he needs. You know what I mean?
So how did I know
Randy wants to win, and so do we.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah,
It's all about
that's
winning.
a great
man.
relationship.
Yeah.
But how much, so you have desert experience and obviously familiar with shocks and what they can do and their limitations or whatever. But somebody like Randy comes to you and goes, hey, this is what I'm feeling in the car, or I'm thinking about this. And you go, yeah, it's a stupid idea, or yeah, maybe we can make something work here, or oh no, that's a great idea. So how much of that racer input, that collaboration, I guess, at the end of the day to come up with a new design or shock?
Yeah, we work with everybody all the time. You know what I mean? And especially Randy. Randy has always wanted to run up front, and of course, I think that's like every racer. They always want to run up front, and so we work together in order to whatever we can do. And sometimes we have a little different ideas, and Yeah, it's sometimes doing them. Sometimes is also just trying some things. And
Sure.
I've learned by trying some things, and I've also learned some things that's not the best way to
Didn't
do
work.
it. Sometimes those heavier springs may not work, or those heavier check valve springs, and all of the stuff that I put in shocks today is I've usually tried many different things, and sometimes I've also, that just didn't quite work out. And let's go back to the other way, and
So the secret is, I don't know what secret sauce is involved in shocks and whatnot, but I mean, was there like, what was your reaction, I guess, you desert racing background, what was your reaction when somebody like Randy Slauson comes to you and said, yeah, I want to build a car with a shock package on it that can go fast in the desert, but I also need to go fast through giant rock gardens?
Stability through the rocks.
I mean, did you go, no, that's not going to happen, or was like, let's figure it out?
Well, it's everything that we do with these cars, and this is from a trophy truck to a rock crawler to a desert race car. All these cars are a little bit of a hybrid car.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is these Ultra 4s, to me, most of it is in the rocks, is really what's going to... You can gain 5 minutes or a small amount in the desert, and the cars just need to be able to be somewhat competitive in the desert, but they need to be the best in the rocks.
Right.
And they need ground clearance, et cetera, in order to go through the rocks. And you can gain and do a lot of desert testing and gain a small amounts of time maybe in the desert, but not enough that's going to make a huge difference in winning or losing that race. It's all the rocks and getting through some of those obstacles, that some of the stuff that Ultra 4 throws at these cars is just unbelievable. I mean,
Oh yeah, who'd have thought?
who would have thought?
On that note, the trophy trucks, I've been with you and Randy from pretty much day one. You guys trying to figure out what made them was not working. We went from 2 to 3 tubes. The rebate explained it to me is the trophy truck is way heavy up top, so it can just keep the axles doing whatever you do. Randy's was almost the same weight top and bottom, and that's what you ended up fighting for those first couple times. And
Okay, so as you were saying, Bob, the
the way rebate explained it to me was the trophy truck is way heavy up top,
yeah,
so the suspension just has something to push against.
okay,
Randy's was explained by rebate to me and Randy that it was so close top and bottom that it was fighting each other. And they came up with something from the very first time I rode in a bomber in the wash. My teeth were heading out the door. And it's come to where now I sit in there with just, it's like a couch. It's so much fun.
okay,
But it took a few years to really get it. And it just keeps getting better.
yeah,
Any of the lighter, Randy's cars are one of the lighter. Randy goes on a little bit of a different theory, and the theory is a little lighter, simpler car, not a lot of extra stuff. Try to keep the car as light as you can, simple, make it look simple, and it's easier to pick up 4,000 pounds over rocks than it is to pick up 5,000 pounds over rocks.
Yeah.
sure,
So his cars have really good approach angles, and being that they're a straight axle, so sometimes it creates a little bit of a challenge in that the fact that the sprung weight sometimes will be less than the unsprung weight, or vice versa.
Sure.
The two are very close to the same, meaning that he has 1,000 pounds axle housing and maybe 1,000 pounds on top of the axle housing. So, as what Bob was referring to is when those on a normal race truck like we used to in a desert race car, those things have a tremendous amount of weight up top, and the top weight may be 2,000 pounds and the axle housing weight is only 1,000. So the suspension can move without disrupting the weight above it a little easier. When those two are close to the same weight, the axle housing can actually control the chassis. And the example I give sometimes to people is if I have a 1,500 pound Chevy truck that weighs 6,000 pounds and I put an 8,000 pound trailer behind it, that trailer can actually start to control the truck.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because the trailer weighs more than the truck. There is a time when weight does become your friend. And that's kind of how a lot of the trophy trucks are, and why it hasn't been a super big deal to them to build exceptionally lightweight trophy trucks, right? Because that actual weight lets the suspension do its job.
So it's like a stabilizer. I mean, to be frank.
You got 3,000 pounds and there's 1,000 pounds axle housing. This 3,000 pounds, the very same way you have acceleration in a lightweight car will accelerate faster than a heavier car. That exact same concept applies to moving a suspension or moving a chassis. As those cars, it's just we're talking at different planes. We're talking a vertical plane instead of a horizontal plane.
Right.
So that exact same concept also applies to a car and a suspension when you're going through bumps and you're hitting lots of bumps.
I always thought it's one of the most beautiful things when you watch a trophy truck going through the whoops and the body's like flat, or the chassis, and the suspension's going
It's
up
pure
and down.
chaos underneath.
It's beautiful. It's just, you know, they're getting a little bit of a ride in there, but man, it's beautiful. That's all I can say about that.
And they just put a lot of weight in the back, and it lets the suspensions absorb that, and that's what happens, and that's how most of those trucks like a lot of weight to the back. I use the example of a dirt bike, right? And when you get into the whoops, you lighten the front end, you put all your weight behind the rear tire, which lightens up the front, and the front's moving 6 inches, and the back is working for all its life. And that's basically a trophy truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. When you're on the throttle, the back is doing almost all of the heavy lifting. The front is just kind of light. Right. And the key to that is trying to get the balance so that the thing also doesn't wheelie too much. Like some of the older rear engine buggies would have a tremendous amount of weight in the back, and they didn't have enough weight in the front. And even like a lot of the older mid-engine trucks were like that. When they didn't have very much weight, they were a mid-engine trophy truck, but they had too much weight in the back. I use the example back to a dirt bike. If I'm leaning in the back of that bike and I go through a turn and I turn the tire, the thing wants to wash out. And it's because it wants to wash out because it doesn't have enough weight in the front of the bike.
Gotcha.
So you're able to, what you do is you slide your weight towards the front. And that way that bike can actually turn without washing out. You can vary the weight on the vehicle, and we can't do that on a trophy truck. We can't vary the weight depending on whether it's a tight turn. And like on some of the older trophy trucks, those things would drive on the front suspension and the restraining strap all the time. And the only way to get them to turn, you turn the tire and they wouldn't turn because there's no contact patch on the ground. We want the tires to be on the ground every single minute because then you have control.
Sure.
If the tires are above the ground, you have no control, right? So on a lot of those older trucks, they were very lightweight up front, and you'd give them the gas and they would just go straight to the strap, and it would be good in a straight line, but you couldn't turn them. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to brake really hard to bring the front end down. And when you'd brake really hard, that would allow you to turn the tire.
Okay.
At that point, you can turn it and go through the turn, but it needed more weight on the front.
But
And
then
they only turn when you're on the brake fairly heavily.
But then you lose momentum, and that's kind of the bad thing.
That's kind of the bad thing, right? But it creates a little bit of a different driving style out of necessity when you drive them, because you turn them and they're kind of like a boat. You turn them and it takes a little while for that change to react.
Sure.
It's not immediate because there's not a lot of weight in the front. And with today's, especially these mid-engine four-wheel drive trucks, put so much extra diff weight, right? They've taken the weight in what used to be a predominantly rear weight. They've also spaced weight to the front, and they've balanced the weight so there's more weight in the front and more weight in the back of the car.
Wow.
I really like it when a car, on a road race car, you would like to put all the weight in the middle, right? And as my father explained it to me, when you put all the weight in the middle, that car, for a road race car, wants to change direction very quickly, right? Because it's like a top and it wants to change its direction around the center of its weight very easily. But if you, an example to me would be a set of barbells, right? And when I have barbells and I have these, let's say a 20-pound set of barbells, and there's two 10-pound weights on each end. If I take those weights and I slide them to the middle, right, now each end with very little force, it will change direction with very little force.
Sure.
Same amount of weight, but now I take those exact same barbells and I spread the weight to each end, and I go put that same finger on the end of the barbell. Now it takes a lot more force to move in the exact same position. And that's basically, so when you're working on like on a road race car that has a car that's working on more of a turning plane, it's not worried about the up and downs of the chassis, right? Like we would on a normal off-road car, right? We like to put the weight out towards the end, and the car doesn't change direction as quick, but it plants both ends of the car so that you can turn it real well, and it also puts weight in the back, and the cars always like weight in the back.
Okay.
That's wow. It is. It's interesting because I compare shocks to like automatic transmissions. Got the basics. I know how they work, but there's so much fagizzy going on in there. The valving, all that stuff, that minor changes can make major improvements on the truck or the car or whatever you're trying to race. So I gotta imagine the technology. I mean, how? Yes, you're listening to racers and stuff, but what's that technology like that you're trying to stay on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, as Chris says, of what's the next get, and is it worth the squeeze of the juice, to try and get to that next level? Mm-hmm. What's that? What's your engineering department like, and what are they testing?
We're working on a new electronic valve. We've been working on it for 7-8 years, and we've found some of the limitations on some of those valves and as doing anything to a suspension or shock, sometimes there is pros and cons to everything you do, and we always weigh the pros and cons. And sometimes when you do something different, sometimes there are more cons than there are pros to it.
Gotcha.
There are some pros, but like anything else, some of these valves we've learned don't flow that much, and it can actually not be a good thing for the car. So if it was a road race car and we had real small shafts and low shaft speeds, and we're working on not really high shaft speeds because they ain't hitting bumps and the shaft speeds aren't 200 inches a second. Some of those valves are okay. Some of those valves are okay for certain applications, but not all shock absorbers. And shocks in off-road are completely different than any other form of typically shocks that go on stuff. And I always say this, we want to stiffen it when it goes to the right. Well, who says that's the right thing to do? I disagree with that, right? Because there's bumps in the road. Mm-hmm. And on a road race car, you could say, I would do that. But in the off-road, there's bumps, there's braking bumps, and some of those, I guess, preconceived thoughts of people sometimes, I believe, are false and incorrect. I don't want the shocks to do that. Can I make the shocks do that? Yes. Is it the right thing to do? No.
Okay.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
we need to build the shocks, and to us the main thing is that those shocks are position sensitive, so that the shock senses the position that it's in, not necessarily the velocity or trying to get it so it, with the gyro where it leans over and you can make it stiff. Well, that's really not what you want. It can be a good marketing thing, but definitely, as long as why would you stiffen up the suspension if there's braking bumps?
Gotcha.
Or there's a bunch of chatter bumps and you'll just feel it all. So it would kind of defeats the purpose sometimes of what you're trying to do with trying to make the stuff too complex. So we're working on new electronic stuff that's going to come out here pretty quick.
Okay.
And we're trying to keep it very simple for everybody to use so that anybody can use it. And
cool. With
some small training and stuff at our shop and some desert testing with us, so that the guy can do a mechanical adjustment, an electronic adjustment to a mechanical valve.
Gotcha.
In their bypass tube, so that if you just want to open it, we've learned a lot that it's not necessarily about what I like or what this other guy likes, because I can go out and make it, and this guy wants it a little bit different, and this guy wants it a little bit different. That's kind of what the valve washers were. We've made valve washers so, well, if the shocks don't work the way you like them, is all you have to do is, we've provided the platform that, like you would change a jet in a carburetor, you can change a valving in there, right? And if you want them stiffer, it's fairly easy to make adjustments to those shocks to make them stiffer, because I've tuned cars, I've adjusted even street trucks, and this thing works good, and the next guy it's not soft enough for. But then the next guy, he wants it stiffer. They're using them, they're the same vehicles, the same platform, but one guy is using it, wants to use it differently than the other guy. One guy wants it to make it super soft just to go get groceries.
Sure.
Right? Like, I take the sway bar off my street trucks to free up the suspension. A lot of times the stiffness isn't the shocks or the springs, it's just the government has rollover tests and J-turn tests, and they put big, huge sway bars on some of these cars. And for me, I take the sway bar off and the cars float a lot more. And yeah, when I drive into driveways, it goes, you can feel the articulation, and it's the sway. When you have a sway bar, it doesn't do it as much because of the sway bar. It doesn't let the suspension move independently of one another. But also when I drive my truck and I'm doing 75 over expansion joints on the freeway, sometimes because there is no sway bar, I can feel it a little bit. And I just get used to the feeling, and I'm okay with it.
Right.
Right? Like, it's just a personal thing.
Personal thing, driving style, right? Everybody has a little bit different driving style, whatever. Bomber Bob can attest to Randy's driving style. Very fast. But yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm glad you touched on this live valve thing, because, it's been out there. I've been in cars with it, side by sides, and you can adjust it. And okay, that's cool. You make a softer ride, harder ride. But I like how you guys have, Honda did it too. It's like, let these guys come out with this shit. Let me figure things out. Let me make sure it's right before, not just jump on the latest trend, right? And so when you guys come out with this, I know it's going to be badass and well thought out, and not just trying to be trend setting.
Correct, and that's why it has taken us a little while. We don't want to do it just for marketing, right?
Right.
It's not about that. It needs to pass mustard on an engineering and on the dyno and the way we've designed it, so that it works with low speed, high speed. And we've also made it so that if you don't even turn the system on, you don't need to. The shocks still work conventional.
Okay.
So it puts 100% of everything into if he doesn't like the way, you don't have to use it. And we can also put stops in these valves, so you can, if you only want it to go 2 turns one way and 2 turns the other, we can put stops in them. Because they're just like you would steering stops, so that you can't get lost and you can't get in left field.
Screw it up so bad that it's got to go back to the factory.
You can make as small or as large of electronic adjustments as you want.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
That's
we're
cool.
integrating it all into the Motec right now. So we've had it for the street truck stuff for a while, for a few years now, and we're just getting it a little bit more integrated into a race car, Motec, steering wheel, buttons on the thing, and keeping it extremely simple, effective, and being able to show people what it's doing on the dyno. But the next guy, he wants to go 8 turns and 8 turns this direction and 8 turns this way. We're able to do that. But if he only wants to go 2 or 3, and so you can never get in left field, we can set those parameters in it fairly easily, so that you don't get lost and it doesn't make your suspension work bad or.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Different terrain sometimes wants different setting for the same race car. Like I always say, like if you're going through whoops, sometimes you want it to be softer, because the whole weight of the car is not like, say, on the front suspension. The car is a little lighter. You're doing 90. You got lots of whoops. I just need low shaft speed. I need it to blow off. But that same car, if you make it work really good in the whoop-de-deuce, then sometimes when you have these big jumps, there's just not enough oomph, right? So with the system, you're going to be able to, with the push of a button on the steering wheel, just make a small adjustment to the car.
That's cool.
But if you want it a little bit, we're going to make it so it's 100% user-friendly and teach people how it works, not try to keep it a secret. We don't want to have people have our engineering staff on staff to be able to work this stuff, and there's very simple diagnostic stuffs to make sure it's powered up, and it'll have all the wiring harness and everything, so you don't it's a fairly simple install as long as it fits your car. The install, pretty much most of the do-it-yourselfers will be able to install it all.
That's great. So the fine line out here at King of the Hammers, or at least for me as a race enthusiast and listening to Randy and stuff talk about suspension, we've got whoops, we've got rocks, we got fast desert, we got everything out here. So how do you find that middle area, that middle ground, if you will, of like it works really good or pretty good in all those aspects, to try and check all those boxes?
At a certain point, that really becomes driver.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Personal preference of a driver, and there's no other way around it. You know what I mean? Like some people like it a little loose, and other people like it tighter.
So, and that's it. So it's like if I want it, like I want to go fast in the desert, you can tune the car to that, but you're going to compromise for other areas, the rocks or something else, right?
I personally like a little bit of a tighter car. I feel a little bit more feel sometimes. And sometimes other people like them a little bit softer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes they feel so soft, it's almost like a boat. You don't feel any reaction because it's just literally too soft.
Gotcha.
It's just, dude, your car you turn it, it don't do anything.
Not getting a lot of feedback.
You don't get a lot of feedback. There doesn't feel like you don't have as much road feel.
Yeah.
Over the years, as many times as I've ridden with Randy, there's certain areas out here that I watch him. We used to ride down a wash to the north, as smooth as glass on our bikes. And 2-3 years ago, we were going down this wash with 2-foot ruts, the very same wash. And he goes, "You remember when we rode this and there was no bumps or ruts here? And we're doing 85, 90 miles an hour through this stuff." And then we hit the lake bed and we're doing whatever. But just going from that, I've learned to watch Randy over the years. he has certain, I won't say what they are because it's him. You can tell when he's getting ready to get it on and hang on. Other times it's like, yeah, whatever, okay, fine, we're just cruising, having fun, but we're still doing 85, 90 miles an hour. But then you can see it kind of change. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, here we go. But, you know, and it's all because of Brett and his crew. It's just gotten better and better and better.
So it's a learning process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you learn from experience and what works, what doesn't work.
Randy noticed these little things that maybe some of the drivers don't. They're still very good drivers, and I don't put anything against them. I've had a couple drivers over the years, and various people go, "You ride with Randy?" Well, yeah, he doesn't, you know. I'm fine. It's not like he's out there to kill himself.
Jason's ridden with Randy too.
I rode with Randy out from the house out of Gardnerville, and I couldn't say no. I didn't want to say yes, but I couldn't say no.
I have an exact same experience with Randy. Exactly like that a few years ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to say no, and he wouldn't take that, and I had to go with him. And you know what? It was really cool for me.
Right.
Like, the few times that I have rode with him, it was a cool experience for me.
So was that in his Jeep or in the race car?
The race car.
Okay.
The race car.
You know what I mean?
We'll leave the Jeep alone.
It was a cool experience.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it is completely different than an independent front suspension race truck or a Class 1 buggy or a traditional off-road vehicle. You know, that thing has hydraulic steering, and you know, the thing is four-wheel drive, and how you can throw it into places that you couldn't do it, and it's because it's four-wheel drive. And, you know, I've typically have been, you know, all of these new four-wheel drive trophy trucks are really just a predecessor started by Ultra 4. Right, or a spin-off of Ultra 4, because you can take your street truck, and I'm just on a graded road, and click it in four-wheel drive. And I went from a stock 1500 pickup that I'm spinning the tires and kind of not in very control. And you just click the four-wheel drive button, and now I have more control. Like I said, you want the tires on the ground all the time. When you have more tires pulling, you can turn the tire and hit the gas, and the front tires will take you in that direction.
Exactly.
Right. So no different than a side-by-side. And
Sure.
You drive it in two-wheel drive, and you click it into four-wheel drive. And to me, it takes a lot of the skill out of driving, because it's much easier to drive in four-wheel drive.
Right.
Like, you're not driving with the rear end hung out and spinning the tires at, you know, you're doing 30 miles an hour and your wheel speed is at 80 miles an hour, and backing them into corners, and the driving style is so much different, right? It's just made the cars weigh a lot more, and as they weigh a lot more, it's harder on tires.
Sure.
It's just
Right.
amazing to me that the stuff that Randy can make that car do, like going from here to Chocolate Thunder up through the dunes, and you're doing 120 miles an hour or whatever it was when I looked at the screen, and you swear the car's going to roll when he makes a corner through some of the ruts. But no, it just hooks and goes, and you're like, we're not going to roll. Okay, cool.
Well,
But
that's
just looking at the screen going, whoa.
yeah. That's what I experienced. We were coming into corners, and I swear to God, we were making 90-degree turns. I mean, the car just chink, and I'm like, holy hell. And it was just, I really enjoyed, you know, just getting to see him drive that car, right? And what you could do, and you know, you got to ride with Justin Wicks too, and
Eric Wicks.
you know, it's just any of these. Well, yeah, but Justin took us for that little test drive early on, and it's just in a Bomber as well, and it's so cool to see these drivers operate, you know, firsthand from a passenger seat, and what the car is capable of. Because if I drove, you know, Randy's race car, I'd be doing like 45 miles an hour out there and scared shitless.
I've been lucky enough to drive him over the years, off and on, and I have tons of fun, but it's not going nearly as fast as he does.
Yeah.
And just being able to do that,
Right.
especially like in his backyard, like you say.
Yeah.
You're going through the junipers, and the next thing you know, you're doing a 90 the other direction.
Yeah.
Down through a gully and whatever.
Right.
And it's just, It's so much fun.
So wild.
It is, and the rocks that those cars go through is exceptional, and it's what separates those vehicles from any other vehicle in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, trophy trucks are to big bumps, Ultra 4 is to the rocks.
To the rocks.
I've used an example. I mean, I don't know how many years, 3 or 4 years ago, Jason and I went on a trail run. We went out to Outer Limits, and we had a big, fairly large group of vehicles, all capable. And we did Outer Limits in, 2 hours?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 hours. And the race cars go through it.
We had a few stops, so don't give us too bad of a rap here.
Well, the race cars go through it in like 5 or 10 minutes.
I know, yeah, they just blaze through it, right?
Same trail, just different cars.
So cool. I got to share a story. So when I bought that buggy that you were looking at out there, I bought it 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, and I brought it out here to Hammers. It was one of the first trips after I'd bought it. New to me, long history behind the car, had the King shocks on it. And I didn't know a lot about shocks, but I knew it wasn't riding right. So I went down to your booth, and I said, hey, I just bought this buggy. The shocks don't seem right to me. Is there anybody I can talk to, And they're like, oh, yeah. So welcome me in. And I made it super clear. I'm not a racer. I'm not racing this weekend. I'm just out here recreating. And they're like, no, come over. And so I talked to a couple guys, and they're like, okay, can you bring the buggy here Monday morning? And I said, yeah, whatever time you want. Okay, be here at, 8 o'clock. I'm like, okay. 8 o'clock, we pulled in. Again, I made it very clear. I was not racing. I'm just a recreationalist. And brought the buggy in, jacked it up. We took all the shocks off, went through. Whoever had touched the shocks before had flipped some of the valves upside down. So there was no oil passing through. And they're like, holy hell. Totally rebuilt all my shocks. Everything done. We pulled the shocks back up, and they go test it, And I went out there, and I go, okay, what do I owe you guys? Nothing. I said, no, that's unacceptable because you just did a lot of work on my car and fixed it. Nope, nothing. So I can't remember the guy's name at the time. A rebate did come by because he was one of the younger kids was there and says, oh, you need this and a 12 flutter, and it was way over my head. I'm like, I just go recreational wheeling, and a rebate goes, okay, what are you doing with this car? Do you go fast or anything? I'm all, nope, don't go fast. I just rock crawler. Okay, yeah, that's the setup you want to do. Rebuilt the shocks. I go out, and it was like night and day difference. So good, and it's been that way for the past 6 years. I haven't touched those shocks, and that's why I asked you when you walked up. I said, how old are those shocks? Because that car's older 2003 car, and you're like, yep, those are the old shocks, but they still kick ass. But I was a King fan before, just because I knew a little bit of history and like seeing King shocks and being a fan, but you made me a King fan from then on. It was super cool. I did throw a little money for a pizza party for the guys because I couldn't walk away with nothing, but I really appreciated that. And it was like, there's a lot of companies that won't do that. They're like, oh yeah, cool, you got our chalk, or whatever part. Customer support goes a long ways, and I know you guys are big on that.
Yeah, we're there to help anybody and everybody, and it's not just shocks. It could be any other shock brand. If they got a tire, we're really there to help anybody who needs help.
That's cool.
That's what we're there for. And, we've done some crazy things and rebuilding shocks for guys who are racing, and, they ripped a corner off or something, and they're putting their car back together, and we're building them a new shock in the trailer just so they can get back out on the course in a half an hour.
Sure.
They just want to finish, and
right.
That's kind of the spirit of what we're there for. You know what I mean? Like anybody who needs help, and it's been a good way that we get to meet people, and it's a fun thing for us. You know what I mean? Like we enjoy coming out here.
Sure.
I'm that way with my guys. Like, you got to want to come. If you don't want to come, it's okay. You can stay at home.
Sure.
If you want to come for a couple days, but if you don't really want to be here, you don't need to be here. there's always somebody who loves to do it and wants to come, and that's important for me, is to have people there that want to be there.
Very cool.
Well, it makes things better if you're engaged. If there's people that are forced into something, may not be an asset at that point.
Correct. It's 20 years now, and you know what I mean? It's like anybody who does anything for a long, long period of time, sometimes the interest is not there as much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like going to Dakar. Everybody wants to go until they've done it once or twice. And if they've done it once or twice, and I really don't want to go again. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's some things in your life that you really, especially as you're younger, that you want to experience, but I don't need to experience it
again.
I don't need to go to Dakar 25 times.
You check that box.
It's very hard to do.
Is it?
It's very long. You're in the middle of nowhere, and it's a difficult thing to do. And if you're young and you want the experience, but it's usually an experience that you don't want to do for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, you got an A+ operation down there. You got Jaime cooking up meals. You got, it's badass.
Making sure I'm fed.
Yeah. Bob provides you with oranges. It's you guys have made a stakehold here on the lakebed, and iconic, honestly, over these past 20 years. Pretty freaking cool. So what's next? You hinted about the live valve, but what's on your radar here in the future? You got your daughter behind you racing, and what are you thinking here in the future? We built a small little race area in our shop, so we can do some fabrication and do some of so that we can work on her car. And I'm in the process of restoring it's one of the original trophy trucks from 1993. Oh, no kidding.
Yes, and I had got the truck with a friend of mine in 1994, 95.
Okay.
It was one of the very first all-tube chassis trophy trucks built by a guy named Ken Seipel. Ken Seipel was in Sacramento.
Okay.
Right. It was called Prism Design. And at the time, he built like 2 or 3 of these all-tube chassis trophy trucks, and started in 92 and completed it in 93. So it was basically an all-tube chassis truck, or one of the very first all-tube chassis trophy trucks that was ever built. And it had I-beams on it, and it was an earlier, and the guy was racing against Walker Evans, and Walker passed him, and Walker had a big, Dodge Dakota with a 440 big block Dodge in it. And, he's like, and he was running a Class 1 buggy with a beam and like a Type 4 motor, and those big iron block, Indy cylinder head 440 big blocks were just smashing by him like in the straightaways, and he didn't like that, so he had Ken build him a all-tube chassis truck with a Dodge 440 big block in it. And then my deal with him when getting it is he could go race it, and I would work on it and prep it for a year, and he raced it for a year or so. And then when we lost our job and we started to start King, I put the thing in a storage shed.
Wow.
And it was in a storage container for 28 years.
No kidding. Wow.
And we took it out of a storage container. It was in a steel storage container. And we took it out a few years ago, and one of my older son decided he wanted to go drive it. And hey, if you want to go drive the thing, and you want to to make this thing run again, I'll support it, and you got to do it. And he drove it once, and he loved it. It needed a lot more work, but it went for a couple hours, and then it's like, the block is rusty.
Sure.
And we basically we opened up a can of worms. and you get those older things, you really gotta like completely redo the whole thing. The fuel tanks, the fuel cells, all the water lines, the engine block, like everything on the whole, every single piece has to be reworked. So
Brake lines, the whole deal.
every single piece on the whole car has to be done, redone, and we're doing that process right now.
That's cool.
In an effort to get the thing running, and I'm really hoping by the end of this year, because we've been working on it for a while, and I'm really hoping by the end of this year we can get that thing running again, and I can get my son and my daughter and me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I'm feeling a little better. I've been losing some weight, and I want to be able to go drive a little while.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I'm feeling a little bit better, and I want to be able to go out and drive those trucks, and you know what I mean? It's been down for a long time, and we're updating everything on the thing, you know what I mean? So it's gonna still be the original, you know, 93 Ford body style truck, you know, all with the original fiberglass body from Trailer Products and everything on it. So it'll look like an older Ford truck.
Right on.
Retro.
I love it.
It'll be retro, and it hasn't seen the light of day for 30 years, so I'm trying to resurrect it. You know what I mean? And now that the old Fords are cool again.
Yeah, they're cool again.
You
Yeah.
just got to keep something for long enough, and it will.
It'll come back.
It will
in
come
style.
back. Do you know what I mean? You just got to keep something for long enough, and it will eventually come back.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's cool. So,
Just like Bob. He's cool again.
So was that the automatic transmission in the old truck?
yes,
Was it the manual valve body?
it had a manual valve
So
body.
when
in it.
you went to change various shifting points, did you just pull out ball bearings and drop them in the valve body? My buddy's dad had a transmission shop in Riverside that he used to do the transmission for Dave Shope.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave came in one day and says, it's not shifting, I want it a little harder. So my buddy was doing those back then, and he's like, okay, takes it out, pulls a ball bearing, drops a bigger or smaller one in it, here and there, and Dave went out and came back, and he goes, that's great, a little too hard going into second. My helmet went back and broke the rear window. That's the days I was having fun watching all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
It was like,
Yes.
that's the era, yeah. So to me,
That
they
is
need to
the
bring those
era.
back as a class, like before '95, and watch all those I-beams and all those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to.
It was,
Custer Company was just down the street from Dave's shop, so we would go to. You know, they were kind of an earlier Ford race company, building the early Ford Broncos and stuff, and Strop was just down the street from us, and
Wow.
we would go to Strop, and then just down the street from Strop was Carroll Shelby, and
Yeah.
Jesus.
Carroll Shelby was in Carson, and they were the Goodyear tire distributor for all the race teams, and Goodyear was fairly heavily into the off-road in the 90s. And Carroll Shelby was right by the Goodyear blimp in Carson, and I would always go there during lunch and see little Joe. Little Joe ran all the motorsports division for Carroll Shelby for Goodyear. So
that's what I got to watch at Riverside, is all those guys, Parnelli Jones, Walker, Dave, whoever else, all those oddball things that Parnelli Jones built with the seat way up behind and all that stuff. It was weird, but it was awesome. It was just, yeah. I tell stories, and I've heard people go, are those true? I says, there's that and more.
Yeah.
I've done some lunatic stuff in my life, and it's been fun.
That's coil.
there was a little bit more completely different ideas.
Yeah, it
in
was.
the past, like torsion bar, coilover. There was a lot more different. None of the trucks were alike because there was no production of any of them. It was all real small. You know, build one truck and another truck, and every builder built
Had an
his
idea.
truck completely different. And then, through the years, everything went to 4 links, and there's no more torsion bar trucks, and they've kind of figured out what's worked, and they just stick with it.
Sure.
Well, we know this shock type setup works, and you don't really, you're not getting, we're all switched to coilovers, and the leaves are gone, and torsion bar trucks are gone, and they've kind of figured out what works the best, and you're just making small improvements to that existing stuff even today.
Cool.
So,
What's one of the standout projects that you've been involved with? Like something that sticks out. I'm sure you've done some pretty cool maybe it's beyond trophy truck, maybe it's military. Something that kind of sticks out?
Spaceships.
I've had lots of different projects that I work on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Spaceships.
Your daughter's saying spaceships.
we have done some different stuff other than off-road. And
That's
it's one
definitely
thing
off-road.
that people really don't know too much about us. Dude, we have been for 20 years building shocks for motorhomes and semi-trucks.
Okay.
Right. For quite a while, we've been building some of those. We've done them in the early days. We did a bunch of roller coaster shocks that go on the roller
kidding.
coasters
Okay.
hang below.
Yeah?
The roller coaster hangs below the track, and those the pod that holds the people hangs below, kind of like a helicopter would.
Wow.
And we'll put shocks on each direction of those on a roller coaster. We've done stuff for Disney, and we still do for some of the rides at Disneyland.
Cool.
They're just down the street from
Yeah.
us, and we have a little get new ones and put the old ones on and service the old ones, and they just kind of do maintenance and stuff like that on some of the rides there. And there's a few Ferris wheels. We've done some of the shocks for some of the Ferris wheels. They need shocks on some of them to kind of so the
I
thing
didn't
just
know Ferris wheels
doesn't
had shocks.
move sometimes.
Okay,
The
makes
little
sense.
gondolas that are
Yeah,
on there
okay.
move. We'll put shocks on some of those.
Okay.
We do a few other things, pretty small, but we do some of those other things. And
Riley keeps
there
saying
are-
spaceships.
I was going to say, what's the spaceships?
It didn't end up going through.
We've done some of the shocks for some of the way they want to land some of those spaceships.
Moon rover stuff.
Yeah, where they
Yeah.
land on pods and they
Okay.
land on,
Wow.
big custom, huge hydraulic cylinders, basically, a modified version of our shock when they land those things that, weigh 50 tons.
Yeah.
And they bring them in, and they have these, pads that when they land on there, they need some movement and some to absorb that 50,000 pounds coming in to land.
So literally, King's out of this world.
Pretty much. Sounds like there might be some NDA stuff here we're delving
I was going to
into,
say,
so- let's
but that's
walk away
good.
from
That's
that.
really good. Amazing. Holy hell. We can go on forever here, but
I know you had a timeline, right?
well, yeah, he's trying to get off this lake bed here. It's 2:15, but we're going to continue this at some later date. I appreciate your time, Brent, and it's freaking awesome to learn about this.
Absolutely. No, this
you know.
was very educational. And, King Shock's obviously very prominent on the lake bed, as we said. And all the big, we know some racers that are running those shocks. And they do amazing jobs. I mean, shock absorbers, the abuse that they take out on the race course, looking at the reservoir system so they can stay relatively cool. I mean, I guess I have one closing question is, how hot do these shocks get when they're like all day long getting beat
cycling.
on? Like, what are we looking at? 500 degrees, 400 degrees?
We've taken lots of temperature measurements on the shocks, and what we've found out is it's directly proportional to the ambient temperature outside. Right? If it's a hot day and it's 102 and you're running high wheel speeds for long periods of time, those shocks will, get 400 degrees.
Wow.
We used to see a lot higher temperatures than we do today. Through the years and many years ago, we had tremendous heat issues, and now that we've gone to finned reservoirs and you get it on all 8 shocks, every shock, so they've really cooled the shocks down. And we used to pull shocks apart and they'd stink up the shop because they just got so hot they smelled like rotten eggs, and people would get a headache and want to go home from work because it just stunk the shop so bad. And we just don't have that anymore with these. The finned reservoirs bring the temperatures down, and we've got a little bigger shocks and fins, and all of a sudden the heat issues are pretty much a non-factor for us. But at the same time, those shocks do get 300 to 400 degrees all the time.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And shock service, we say, is directly proportional to how hot you get them, not miles or anything.
Really? Okay.
Right, because they got rubber parts in them, and the rubber is what doesn't like the heat.
Gotcha.
Any of the metal or aluminum the heat doesn't really bother it. It's anything that's rubber in there, and the rubber doesn't like to get hot, and what it doesn't like to do is get hot and try to do it with 20 or 30 heat cycles.
Right.
Right. So most of the shocks we see on like a race truck it's very common for them to be 300, 350. It's just a factor of what we do, and the shocks don't mind it. They do it no problem. You don't notice it. They don't leak, but they are getting hot.
Okay.
Right. They definitely get hot. And that's one thing we always talk about is temperature is, oh, my shocks are hot. Well, you can't really, people use their hand as a gauge to go adjust the temperature, and your hand is not a very good gauge.
Right.
And the way I always explain it to people is your engine at 200 degrees is at normal operating temperature, but if you go put your hand on it at 200, it burns your hand.
Yeah.
Right. So what most people's idea of a hot shock and what my idea of a hot shock are two completely different things.
Sure.
And your hand is not an accurate gauge.
Right.
You can tell if your shocks are warmed up with your hand, but you can't tell if they're hot.
Yeah.
Because your hand can't tell the difference if they're 200 or 400.
You're burned either way.
You're burned either way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
No, my shocks got hot. Okay, well, what temp did they get? And well, they don't really know the temp.
Yeah, don't touch your shocks, fellas, people.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does.
It's like, because when we do dyno work, we preheat the shocks at 225 before we even...
Okay.
We preheat them to get them up to temperature before we even do any cycling of the shocks.
So Amber mentioned that the other day. She goes, I can notice a difference when the shocks are cold to when they get up to operating temperature. And that didn't even dawn on me, because I'm just rock crawling and I don't even build up the heat. But yeah, that makes sense. So
it does make a difference whether they're cold or hot.
Sure.
And where it makes just like Amber said that, it's a single shock per wheel car. And that's where it makes more of a difference is on a single shock per wheel car.
Yeah.
It is, they always will have that because it's a single shock.
Gotcha.
Right, it's a little undershocked a lot of times. It doesn't have that bypass. It needs a little more shock. And that they work good, but they do have some shock fade as those shocks get hot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Wow. Limitations on the 4800 class. So.
Yeah. Great stuff. Anything else you want to add? Anything we didn't touch? Congratulations, you did your first podcast, Brett.
Good.
And Bob,
I'm
too.
excited.
Nice.
I'm excited.
It's great stuff. Appreciate it. Riley had her debut as well. Somewhat off mic, the shark.
I'm just glad I've got to know all you guys.
How about that, huh?
I mean, via Randy, of course, but everybody's become friends, and some little young lady's tapping me on the head like an old man.
It's good stuff, and that's our racing community, right? It's like no matter what your part is in it, and obviously King Shocks has a huge part in it here. But you know, even a stupid little podcast like this to just get some stuff out there and document. I love it.
We're all a big off-road family,
right?
Essentially,
Absolutely.
we all have the same common likes. You know, whether it be off-roading or camping or rock crawling or rock racing or going to Fordyce or going to the Rubicon Trail.
It's my favorite.
We all have some sort of a commonality, and that's why we're all here.
Hell yeah.
Is because we're all here to do a common sport that we
Yeah.
all enjoy. No,
It's super
no
cool.
one wants us. We're here on our own free will.
Right.
And we all like it.
Yes.
You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I mean?
Nope.
I've done stuff from IMSA racing back in the 80s all the way through to motocross and on beyond. And as long as I'm doing something with wheels or motors, I'm happy. My sister calls us Johnson Valley my happy place,
Yeah.
among other things, but we won't go into that.
No, 100%. That brings it full circle because you mentioned it early on. It's you enjoy coming out here and camping and getting to enjoy the desert, and
Camaraderie.
that's it. Camaraderie. We got our big camp here. We've got our first group dinner tonight. About 40 people. We're cooking burgers for us, so that's what I got to get prepped for here. Tonight's my dinner, Ned. I'm head chef or something like that. The Swedish chef. I don't know.
Here's something.
Borsky, borsky, borsky. So, anyways,
Hey, real quick, I know we're a little bit older here, but do you guys want to, like, your IG? Do you have an IG? Do you want to do any shout-outs?
No,
No, I'm
good.
getting a blank look.
no, I'm good. He's all, no, I'm good. Go to King
good.
Shocks.
Kingshocks.com, I would think.
At kingshocks.com, yes,
Yeah,
is
okay.
our website.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or
yes.
just Google it.
Balmer,
You
what's
can
your...
see the whole company there through King Shocks.
There you go. Balmer Bob, what, you got an IG or a Facebook or
I know
a TikTok?
nobody.
You got a TikTok page, don't you?
No.
No?
No Facebook. And the only reason I might be on Instagram is because somebody named Randy.
You have a MySpace?
Oh, we're
I remember MySpace and every other thing, but I never was on that. No, I am not on that stuff.
well, we're gonna take a picture and we're gonna post it on our IG page. How about that?
you
Perfect.
got a release?
Yeah, I do. I have a release. You've already signed it by getting into this trailer.
Like it would matter.
Fellas,
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We
Absolutely.
really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. Chris, with that,
We're out.